Welcome to Jurassic Park. The speedrun tutorial, that is. I'm sure there is a better way to incorporate that quote, but yeah, anyways. So, this is it. The speedrun tutorial for Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues. The long-awaited tutorial. In this series of videos, I will be going over everything you need to know about this game and the speedrun, including but not limited to different versions, beginner on optimal strats, combat and movements, and etc. etc. Each video in this series will I'll try to include at least 2 levels, depending on how long the levels are. I might do 3 levels if time permits. This first video, the one that you are currently watching, will be an overview on the run and what to expect. In the description of this video, I will add the timestamps so that you can find a specific topic you would like to watch. I will also be adding timestamps to each subsequent video in this series, just so you can find specific tricks or key highlight moments during each level. So be on the lookout for that. So first of all, let's talk about version differences. So there are 4 different versions you can play this game on. You have the original hardware, which is on the SNES. You have the recently released Classic Games Collection, which has been released on next-gen consoles and Steam. Then you have the questionably not-so-legal version, which is really just an emulator. And then the 4th version is the PAL version. For all intents and purposes, all the versions are the exact same. It really just comes down to quality of life differences. There are some very small gameplay differences, but for all intents and purposes, they're the exact same. I will get into those gameplay differences when the time comes, when those specific scenarios come up. But it's really just quality of life stuff. So what I mean by that is, on emulator, you have just a whole bunch of different save states that you can use to help yourself when you practice this game, which I would highly recommend, by the way, because on all the other versions, you do not have save states. You do, however, have a cheat code that you can input, and this cheat code will give you infinite lives. And that'll also help out if you're going to play on the SNES or the Classic Games Collection, because again, you don't have those save states. So I'm going to tell you this cheat code that will give you infinite lives. And to do this cheat code, it's going to consist of just the left bumper and the right bumper. So you'll go to the main menu, the level select screen will work, or the game over select screen will work. So when you're on this menu, you're going to input this combo. Left, 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 right, 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 left, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, 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 right, right, right. And then when you do that correctly, you will hear a little chime, and that's how you know you did it correctly. And you will now have infinite lives. Now we're going to talk about the speedrun itself. So there are 2 different categories. I probably shouldn't have loaded this save state. There are 2 different categories this game has to offer. You have your normal difficulty and your hard difficulty. So this series of videos is going to cover the hard difficulty and the strats that are used on hard mode, but everything that I will explain can be used on normal, so I just want to make that clear. The only difference between hard and normal, there are a few differences, but the main major difference is that on hard mode, you have an extra mission at the very end. You have that helicopter fight. But there are a few minor differences that you'll get on normal. That being, enemy projectiles will fly out faster, enemies will have a bit more health, and I think that's about it. Again, it's very small differences. So this game relies heavily on memorizing enemy spawns. There are very few elements of RNG in this game. There's actually only one real spot with RNG, But everything else, all the enemy spawns, they are predetermined, and the best way to learn all those spawns is to just play the game a bunch. Unfortunately, I can't exactly teach how to learn all of the spawns. So when we're going through the levels, through the tutorial, I'm really just going to kind of glance over all of the spawns that are predetermined. If there is something that needs to be explained about a specific spawn, if there's something weird or something we do with it, then I will explain that. But generally speaking, I'm just going to assume you know the spawns because you've played the game. And again, I can't really teach that, so you're just going to have to play the game a bunch to memorize all the spawns. But that's what this game really comes down to, just memorizing spawns. So now we're going to talk about core mechanics of the game. So this is just basic stuff about the game itself, not necessarily speedrunning stuff. But anyways, let's get into my save states that I have prepared. So for starters, let's talk about the weapons. So in this game, you have 3 lethal weapons. Your SMG, oh no, this is your rifle. This is your SMG, and this is your shotgun. And then you have 3 non-lethal weapons. You have your taser, you have your tranquilizer, and then you have your grenade launcher. There is a 4th weapon that you will obtain later on in the game, which I'm not really going to explain, but we will come back to this. Your super bazooka. I will come back to the super bazooka later, but for now we're just going to look at the 3 lethal and 3 non-lethal weapons. So with your lethal weapons, you can use to kill anything in the game. You can kill your human friends and your dinosaurs. With your non-lethal weapons, they do not affect humans in any way whatsoever. They only affect dinosaurs. Now, if you look at the top of the screen, you'll notice I have a dino counter that's at 87 right now. This is kind of important, but not really in the speedrun. It doesn't really have an effect, but it is something you want to be aware of once you start learning the game. But if that dino counter gets too low, so like if you use a lethal weapon to kill a dinosaur, except for raptors, this doesn't include raptors, but all the other dinosaurs, if you use a lethal weapon to kill a dinosaur, except for raptors, then that dino counter will go down. And because we are in Jurassic Park, we do not want to kill the dinosaurs. On hard difficulty, if you go below 75, if you kill 75 dinosaurs, then you will hit game over. On easy or normal, then that number is 50. 50 is the lowest you can go. But again, you probably won't have an issue running into that. Maybe once you're learning the game, for starters, then it might be a problem. But once you start learning the game and know all the spawns, then you're not going to have to worry about the dino counter. Alright, so next we're going to talk about movement. Now this is going to include some speedrunning strats. So first of all, let's talk about laddering. If you've ever played this game before, you've probably done this. So this is the basic laddering movement, your classic left-right taps to climb up the ladders. This is much faster than just climbing up the ladders like normal, like this. And to do this, it is very, very simple. All you do is just jump onto the ladder and hold the jump button. If you're holding the jump button, then you can jump, then you can tap up and to the right and up and to the left, back and forth, or alternating left and right like that. And you'll just be able to jump up the ladder like this. Very useful, and this is a pretty big mechanic in this game. There is another variation of laddering is called up tapping, but it's only useful really on these short ladders like this one right here. And it looks like this. So you just kind of float up the ladder like that in one swift movement. And to do this, what you do is when you approach the ladder, you want to be holding up and to the right, or depending on the direction of the ladder. So in this case, it'll be to the left. So in this case, I will be holding up and to the left. Then once I touch the ladder, then I will just move my joystick and hold it to the left. Like that. Up tapping is a bit tricky to get used to, and the naming of it is a little bit weird, honestly. Up tapping refers to the task strategy, and you only tap up on long ladders, but you're probably not going to do this because you'll probably end up losing time anyways. But if you decide to try your skill at doing this, the task strategy, this is why it's really called up tapping. Because when you're going up, then you're tapping up. On the short ladders, you're not really tapping up, but on these long ones, you are. So the setup is the same. So I'm going to approach it holding up and to the right this time. And then once I reach the max height of my jump, then I will tap up, and then I will repeat. So I will vocalize the up taps when I do it on this one. Up, up. So I'll do it again. Up, up. It's kind of tricky to get used to. And again, you'll probably end up losing time as opposed to doing your classic left-right taps. The only time up taps are really useful, again, is on these short ladders where it's only one jump, just like that. And again, the naming is a little bit confusing. But on the short ladders, again, once you touch the ladder, then just move the joystick in the direction that the ladder is in. So in this case, it'll be left. Just like that. Okay, next we will talk about edge skips. So this is another movement mechanic that you do throughout the entire run. Whenever you land on the edge of something, most objects, you will get a slight lurch forward, and you will save a tiny bit of time. But done throughout the entire run, they can add up. So I'm going to jump across these two blocks, and I'm going to try to land on the very edge of the blocks. And if you pay close attention, you can kind of see how I get a slight boost forward if I land on the very edge. Now, as opposed to if I don't do it, this is me not doing it. And I'm going to do it again. If I can. There we go. And again, this strategy is a little bit risky because if you miss it, then if you're too short, then you will not jump onto the block and you will lose a bit of time. So it's a little bit tricky to get dialed in, but done throughout the entire run, it does add up and it will save time. So next, real quick, I want to talk about jumping. There are a few tricks where it requires you to do not a full jump. It might require you to do like a 50% jump or like a 20% jump where you just tap the jump button. So whenever we come across those tricks where I say do a 50% jump, that's what I mean. Don't do a full jump where you just hold down the jump button. You'd get a 50% jump or 20% jump. There are a few cases like that where you might need to do a smaller jump. So that's what that is going to refer to. Alright, so now we will talk about combat. Like I said before, the vast majority of spawns are predetermined. The only random spawns, I say that in quotes because they're not technically random, those will be the soldiers that are running back and forth. Those spawns aren't technically random. It all depends on your movement beforehand, before you've loaded them in. But they are on set patterns. There are a few patterns that you can encounter, and you can just react accordingly. There are a couple cases throughout the run that will have to come into play, where you have to react to what certain case you get, and I will explain that once we get there. But again, the vast majority of the spawns are predetermined. So we will talk about enemy encounters and the best way to get through them. So starting with raptors, the idea behind raptors is that we actually want to avoid encountering them at all, or avoid fighting them at all times. So this raptor that I'm going to encounter, I'm going to try to get him to do a large jump, and if I get him to do a large jump, then he will despawn off to the left of the screen. So he got a large jump, and now he is gone. I don't have to worry about him. In this case, he got a small jump, so he didn't get far enough off to the screen. And so now I have to deal with him. So that's the idea behind most of the raptors. Now obviously that's not going to happen every time. You're not going to be able to get him to despawn every time. So in that case, it's pretty easy to manage one raptor. You can just do this little jumping dance with him. And if you want to, you can just decide to shoot him and kill him. If you decide not to and just want to run to your destination, you can do something like this. And then again, most of the time he'll just jump off to the side of the screen and despawn anyways. If you have more than one raptor that are on the screen at once, then that's pretty difficult to manage, so you might have to end up killing at least one of the raptors. But with one raptor, it's pretty easy, pretty manageable to just predict where he's going to go and then just get him to despawn off the screen like that. So that's the raptor. Again, most of the time we're just going to try to avoid them at all cost. So now I want to talk about the flamers and how to get past those guys. So there are a few ways to get past the flamers. Obviously you need to memorize when they spawn. The easiest but kind of slowest way for sure to do is to just come up to them and then duck down. As you can see, the fire will just fly over your head and you will be safe. And from this point you can kill him however you see fit. If you do this method, you do need to be careful though, because if you react too late, then he will just aim down and then shoot you anyways. So again, you just want to know when they spawn, duck down, and then he won't approach you, and then just kill him however you feel like. Another way you can do this is you can get him to spawn in, get him to start shooting, and then you can stand back like this and kill him from there. Once he stops moving, then he won't approach you. So get him to spawn in, you can jump back like that, and then shoot him from here. A weird quirk with the flamers is that you can actually jump inside them like this, and they won't be able to hit you from here. So you can just wait for the cycle to end, and then jump past them like that. So it'll look something like this. That's one way to get past them if you feel like doing that. Another way to do it is, this is a bit of an advanced method. This is when you're going to have to really memorize the spawns. This is going to require you to use your shotgun, and due to a sprite limit of your shotgun burst, you can't mash the shotgun and have multiple bursts on the screen at once. So there's only going to be one burst of shotgun on the screen at all times. I will explain this sprite limit quirk in just a little bit, but because of this quirk, Again, you need to memorize the spawn, and you need to shoot your first shot early before he even spawns on the screen. So you'll shoot your first shot early, and then your second shot immediately after. So it'll look like this. And then you'll probably need to add in a jump so you can avoid the little bit of fire that he'll shoot out. So it looks like that. Again, this is really when you start memorizing all the spawns and get comfortable with all of them. So just shoot early and then jump over. Now, the next little trick you can do, sometimes it's not always easy to do this method where you just shoot early and jump over, because you might encounter a situation where he is hiding behind a block like this. So as you can see, if I'm approaching him, I can't do that anymore because the block is obviously in the way. So in scenarios like this, you'll need to do a diagonal shot if you're going to do the fast method. If you want to do a safe method, what you can do is just do something like this, where you just jump and shoot him. This is safe, but pretty slow. You can even do it with an SMG, but not as well. So you can do that. But this diagonal shot is going to come in handy. You are most likely going to take a bit of damage, so just be aware of that. But anyways, all it is in this case, I'll be looking down and to the right and just mashing the shotgun button. So it looks like that. So if you pay attention to my health, just to get an idea of how much health I lose, you lose about that much health every time you do this method. It is the fastest method, especially when it comes to these blocks right here, if they're hiding behind an object. So it is useful. And you can do it in situations where he's not behind a block like this. You could do your first shot normal, and then the second shot diagonal, like that. There are a few cases where he won't be behind a block, and he'll just approach you like this, but you'll have to do a diagonal shot, just depending on the scenario. There is another mechanic with the shotgun and the super bazooka when it comes to sprite limits on the screen. So with the shotgun and the super bazooka, or in the bazooka, you can only have one shot on the screen at a time. So as you can see, I'm mashing as fast as I can, but only one burst is on the screen at a time. And the reason for that is just because I guess the game just doesn't want to have more than one of these bullets on the screen at a time. However, there is a slight little quirk we can do. We can abuse this mechanic when it comes to a few combat sections with some of the boss kills. If you're standing right up against an object or an enemy, then you can mash as fast as you can, and you can just dump all of those bullets in all at once. So with a few enemy encounters that we will have, if you're right up against the enemy, then you can just dump all of the bullets in all at once if you're standing right up against him. Because again, the bullets are on the screen for maybe a frame, so you can just put in as much as you can. Now we will talk about one last thing, and that has to do with the menu itself and the way the game is laid out. So you have 6 main missions, and then you have your emergency missions after you complete a mission. The emergency missions are in a predetermined order. You cannot change when those are played. They will be played on the second mission you play, then the fourth mission. So every other mission you play, you will have the same emergency mission. Now when it comes to these main missions on the main menu, you can play these in any order you want. There are no rules on the leaderboards that state that you have to play the game down the list in order, you can play the game in any order you want. However, there is a slight stipulation with one of the strategies we use on Protect the Gallimimus. If you remember the Super Bazooka that I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the weapons, you don't automatically start the game with that Super Bazooka. You get that bazooka after you complete 4 missions. So if you want to do the strategy that has the Super Bazooka, then you need to wait and play Protect the Gallimimus on at least the 5th mission. It has to be at least the 5th mission before you play this level. But like I said, you can play any of the levels in order, or you can play the levels in any order you want to. If you find one level to be more difficult than the other, then you can bump that level up to the very start of the run and just get it out of the way, just like that. Okay, with that being said, one quick thing about menu navigation is that when you do select a level, when you're in the main menu, when you're selecting the level, you can press Start, and then any of the 4 buttons, A, B, X, or Y. And then all of those will count as an input towards selecting. So when you get to the menu, just mash all those buttons as fast as you can, and then you will enter that mission. So that's what we do when we are on the menu. Alright, and I believe with that, that will be the overview of the speedrun tutorial. The next video, we will jump into the actual game and the actual run, and I will see you there.